All right, here I am trying to line up the two halves of the butt. So this back seam seems to be really nice. The front seam isn't lining up the greatest. It meets in one place, so I'm gonna weld that when it's time, and then beat the rest in to make it fit before I do the final weld. But I'm gonna line this up. I'm gonna take a grinder, score that in, use either a pipe wrap or a strap or whatever, something, just draw a straight line around to there. I'm hoping on the outside of the circumference of the bottom to match this. I'm hoping that'll get me lined up straight. We'll see as I go. I can make adjustments as I go all along. Yep, let's just get started. All right, here we are. I've got the two halves laid on top of each other. I'm gonna line the shoe up and the foot up, that's the same thing. I'm gonna line the shoe up, and then I'm gonna make marks with the grinder, even with the ends right here. Same way, I'm gonna use a pipe wrap or the strap. The strap's right here, it's easier, yeah, it gets a little off, but that's not a real super huge deal. But I'll get that cut off, and then I'll start doing the butt. And once that's done, be able to drop the butt halves in each piece, fill what the cut ends in with the 1/4" nuts for the garter, and assemble both halves, make it whole, and then start getting everything lined up. And yeah, there's gonna be some clamping and beating, but I'll take you through it. Getting the shoe lined up is the most important point because it's all welded solid so far. I have room to beat and manipulate all this. That's pretty good. Get this marked off with my slicer wheel. All right, moving on to the butt area. I'm going to get everything lined up and tack welded down the seams, and then I'm going to come back through and weld the whole thing solid, so it's one, I don't have to worry about things warping out of place when I'm welding it solid. I did see one right here. You got one bolt head out of place. Looks like they slowly taper back. So before I get started, I didn't weld that seam, so I'm going to take a hammer, just knock it back in close. A little less welding and grinding. If it's already welded in, you can just fill it with weld and grind it over. This is going to be a solid form by the time I'm done. See, this one right here is off. It's welded solid, so I could either drill it out. Grinding it out sucks. I would drill it out with a bigger drill bit than the bolt head size. Or in this case, I'm just going to weld it solid. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the best, probably coming up to keep the tops flush, since they were both in the top of the form. Yeah, I'll keep the tops flush. They have to be, I'm going to weld these solid because these points were the very tip top of the forms. And so yeah, we'll just keep them. I'll do it upside down. That way the table keeps everything where it's supposed to. And then I'll eyeball it in. Probably, actually don't even have to. I just got to weld these points in where they were touching. So yeah, so I'll get everything done in, weld it in. Just watch me as I do it. Here we go. All right, here we are on a fresh start in the morning. I've got this very, very rough ground in, super rough. There's still some little divots that need filled. But what I just noticed was the bottom side of the leg, I've got the points of the bolts where it's not even. So I'm gonna re-weld this. I'm gonna build these welds up, come in, grind it all smooth so it's a straight surface. Check out the top of it the same way. I'll bring it in close to show you. It's not crisp edges, so I'm gonna re-weld the edges, get all them ground in looking good. All the little divots or dimples in the butt, I'm gonna get those filled in. And yeah, looks like today we're just doing butt stuff. This is gonna come through. You can see I got pretty good crisp edges around here. But starting in here, it drops down, which I didn't re-weld, or not re-weld, I didn't get these cut off properly. So I think this all needs to build up just a little bit by eye. Looks pretty good till it gets right into here to here. So I'm gonna just layer the welds on, grind them back off. A few little dimples you can see need filled in. So yeah, I'll do all that, rough grind them back out, and then I'll do the first initial, use flapper wheels to get the initial grinding out. It's just like sanding wood. You gotta go through the different courses to get it completely smooth before I heat fire it. So yeah, let's just get started. Another big day on the welder here. Let's get rolling. Got a 2-inch gap right here. I'm hoping that I can start running these out so they'll all line up. I'm gonna start the points of the hexagon from the nuts against the upper leg and run down. That way it'll be a smooth transition. I can cut these nuts if I have to down there. I think it'd look better to cut them on the leg end than the butt end. The butt end. No buns intended. Don't know if you can see this, but I've kind of tore the form up the plaster. Sometimes it tears out. These nuts from where I welded them in and worked on it, it's really chunked it up and fell it out, which is this old form, so it's kind of more crumbly than I want. Let me show you how to repair this. Right here, my clay that I was getting ready to repair the forms with is dried out. I've too much to work with. So I'm just scraping the last of the remnants into the bottom. I'm gonna pour some water on it, let it sit overnight. Kind of destroys my productivity for the day, but I get right back at it tomorrow. I keep it wetter, more wet than most people would like to use. I get this from Hobby Lobby. Some of it's starting to come in pretty good, get smooth enough. I'm not gonna need much here to smooth this out. I hope this will work. Yeah, it's coming right back to life. I'll fill these low areas in where the plaster forms were damaged. Butt area, that way the flats will line up. This little cushion of clay right here, well, it also helps hold everything in. If I can tap them in place, keep everything nice and even enough. What I'm attempting to do here is spread all these just a little bit, share the taking up the gap basically, just a little at a time. Anytime you're doing multiple dimensional things, just go a little at a time, and it won't be, that's perfect. It won't be noticeable at all until you knock them off like that. But no, it's I just shared the gap where I need it to between them. Time I weld it, time you're looking at it, you will never even notice what I just done. I have to show you once it's done, but on this edge and on this edge, it's warped in or pulled in just a little bit. So I'm going to weld everything, but the center right here, I'm gonna weld the centers in real good, maybe force one side over, and then use a hammer to beat it in. This side here is looking pretty good. It could be a little bit tighter. I'm gonna put a clamp on it just to hold it down in. But yeah, I can manipulate all these in once this is welded. I've got everything tacked together here, but I had one nut start warping out and it's got a spot weld, so I'm just gonna use a big bull peen hammer. Just tap it back in place. This comes through what I'm doing here because of some warpage where this part of the leg had drawn in a little much so the form didn't fit. Everything was great till right here, which I made sure not to weld these to the actual solid part. So now I'm just gonna flip it over. I'm gonna start manipulating it each way, trying to get it bent in and see if I can get it to bend out. Just broke a nut from somewhere. I don't know where. I'll probably up here. Here we go, coming fresh out of the forms. All right, here we go. Fresh out of the forms, and I noticed that I didn't get these gaps. I shouldn't have welded these on the inside and beat these in like I did on the other. So we're here. I'm already tack welded in, so I'm gonna use a slicer wheel, knock these welds out, hammer it in place. You'll see how easy it is to fix it. That's why I keep the smaller slicer wheels in different stages. Got different sizes. These are pretty close to all the same. See, I can even go a little bit smaller if I need to. It's just a touch smaller, no big deal. Yeah, don't use your slicer wheel all the way up, start to finish, if you're doing stuff like this. 7 different stages. I can get in here better now. So again, we have some pieces not exactly lining up with the shoe where I want it. So I'm gonna slice this and make that flush, of course, but then I'm gonna slice these welds out and try to hammer that back in just a little bit, make it sit just a little bit better. It's touching right in here and up in here. So I'm gonna come back into the slicer wheel. You see there's a gap, small gap all the way down, which is perfect. But I'm gonna go ahead and slice these out to make these gaps as even as I can on each side. And then I'll start clamping and beating it together into final form here. Hopefully that chalk line will come through. We'll see. Alright, I just welded this 1 inch by 1/8 inch piece of stock in here, and I put it to my high points of the knee, try to get flush here. So now I gotta come back in, trim it all out, grind it down, almost flush, not quite yet, but then I gotta start beating these nuts in where that I'm gonna want them to touch. I don't know if it'll come through here or not. But yeah, once I get this trimmed down closer, I'm gonna start beating these in with the bullpen. Very precise flat hits, so I'm not leaving dents into the nuts. And then of course I have to fill the foot in here too, but yeah, let's just get rolling on it.